Part 5. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 41. Chapter 41 Chapter 41 Fifth Uncle, do you want to marry her? Zhang Xiaoxi resisted the urge to fight with her and stood up abruptly. The screeching sound of the stool scraping against the floor resounded throughout the hall. Zhou Yuling subconsciously realized that she took a step back to Fu Jinxiu, and looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao with some fear. The most profound thing she remembered was that at the engagement ceremony between her and Fu Jinxiu, this wild girl took the cake on the table and smashed it into her face. He was arrogant because of his favor. He glared at Fu Jinxiu coldly and asked him, "Fifth uncle, do you want me or her?" "You." Fu Jinxiu's one word made the engagement she had worked so hard to get cancelled. She really hated this wild girl and gritted her teeth, but she couldn't forget that she actually dared to glare at Fu Jinxiu coldly, and acted wild in front of him, and how could she be loved by him? It is probably difficult for people not to be jealous of this kind of favor. Zhang Xiao tried his best to control his body, picked up the school bag placed next to him, and said in a cold voice, "I'm going to school. After breakfast, we are leaving." Fu Jinxiu glanced at the half of the breakfast left on the table and spoke forcefully. Zhang Xiao stood still and didn't move. It wasn't that she didn't want to move, but it was because her feet were stuck to the ground like 502 glue, unable to move. "Brother Fu, it's normal for girls to skip breakfast if they love beauty. I guess they want to stay in shape when they were young," Zhou Yuling persuaded Fu Jinxiu in a soft voice. Fu Jinxiu frowned and walked towards Zhang Xiaoxi step by step. Zhou Yuling followed up reluctantly and took Fu Jinxiu's hand. Suddenly a strong cold light suddenly struck. Zhou Yuling stiffened and raised her eyes slightly. They saw Zhang Xiaoxiu's fierce eyes, which were as fierce as a lion that had been seized from the land. The whites of his eyes were stained with bloodshot eyes, which made people shudder. Moreover, the wild girl kept approaching her. As he approached her, a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then he only heard it snapped. Zhou Yuling's white arms had red marks on her fingers, causing burning pain. Zhou Yuling looked at Fu Jinxiu aggrievedly and weakly, her voice stained with tears, "Brother Fu. Aunt Zhou, please don't howl at my house. People who don't know better may think that my family is having a funeral. Grandpa is still healthy. If someone who cares hears it, they will think that you are cursing him." Zhang Xiao was grinding his teeth and staring at Zhou Yuling. Zhou Yuling's face turned pale. This wild girl really knew how to make things out of nothing. With Fu Jinxiu at the side, she couldn't stand up to this girl. "When I was young, why did I offend you? If you tell me, can't I change? After all, we will still live together in the future." Zhou Yuling acted like a weakling, with aggrieved and weak eyes, and a look of compromise on her face. Those who knew it thought she was a junior bullying her elders. "You don't need to change anything, and I won't live with you, and I don't need you to pretend to please me, because that makes me feel sick." Zhang Xiaoxi's eyes did not hide the disgust towards her at all. "Of course we will live together when we are young. Your fifth uncle and I will get married soon. You will also have a younger brother and sister in the future. I will also treat you very well and not show favoritism." Zhang Xiao looked directly at Zhou Yuling, his eyes were fierce, his voice was sinister, and he sneered. "Ah! Mary! Child!" She turned her gaze to Fu Jinxiu fiercely, her eyes still fierce. "Uncle Fifth, do you want to marry her?" "Do you want me to marry you?" Fu Jinxiu asked her. "I don't want to." Zhang Xiao squeezed out every word through his teeth. Fu Jinxiu's lips curled up slightly, his cold handsome face instantly relaxed, and he replied calmly, "Then I won't marry." End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 42. Chapter 42 Chapter 42 I'm a bitch. Brother Fu. Zhou Yuling panicked. The last engagement was ruined by this wild girl. She must not ruin it this time. She had a feeling that if she missed it this time, she would never get it again. Brother Fu, it was the old man who asked us to go back to discuss marriage. Fu Chenxiu stared at Zhou Yuling with his eyes half closed, with his usual indifference. Do you think the old man can decide the marriage? Zhou Yuling's face was so pale that there was no blood at all. She twitched the corners of her lips and said, Brother Fu, we have been together for 10 years, and I have grown older. The old man really wants to have a grandson. Miss Zhang saw that she was still struggling and was not even in the mood to watch a show, so she put on her school bag and turned around to leave. Fu Chenxiu looked at her leaving back, his eyes so soft and gentle that they could shed tears. Zhang started crying when he was in the car when he was young, and slapped himself twice. I call you a bitch, it's best if they get married, why can't you help it? Woo woo woo. My freedom, my vast sea and sky, my sunny beach, handsome guy. Zhang Xiao cried all the way to school. His eyes were swollen from crying and his whole body was twitching. Chu Hanyu walked behind her and patted her shoulder with his hand. Seeing her eyes that were red from crying, her eyes were full of helplessness. Child, why are you crying? Your fifth uncle hit you. Miss Zhang could not hold back her tears when she saw her. She hugged Chu Hanyu and cried, Hanyu, I have taken away my own freedom. Chu Hanyu. When I was little, your fifth uncle didn't lock you up once or twice. It's okay and we'll be free again in a few days. Chu Hanyu comforted her dryly. If someone else had bullied Zhang Xiaoxiao, she would still dare to go to that person to settle the score, but it was Fu Chenxiu, she didn't dare. After Zhang Xiaoxiao heard her consolation, he suddenly felt that life was gloomy. He wanted to kill himself and the system. He was and the system was the culprit. A secret system, I am very innocent. Okay, don't cry. Come with me to a place tonight to ensure that you are resurrected with full health, Chu Hanyu said mysteriously. Zhang Xiao said with a cry, if I don't go to the bar, I will be beaten to death. Chu Hanyu. This is a person who has been oppressed for many years and is so timid. It's not a bar, I'm just as afraid of being beaten to death by your fifth uncle. Where you go, I will go too. Yu Yang suddenly appeared and stood behind them and spoke. Chu Hanyu and Zhang Xiaoxiao were startled. They both yelled at him at the same time, you are going to die. Yu Yang twitched the corners of his dark lips, I'm not afraid that you won't take me with you when you go to a good place. Chu Hanyu looked at his bruised and swollen face with sympathy, Yu Yang, your mother is so ruthless. You can ruin your beautiful face. Yu Yang glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao resentfully, feeling very aggrieved and said, Zhang Xiaoxiao, let's fight. Can you stop being so mean to me? My was opened by my mother last night. I don't even dare to sit down now, my flesh hurts every step I take. Zhang Xiaoxiao twitched his face and said, who told you to trick me yesterday? This is called reciprocity. Chu Hanyu slapped Yu Yang on the head, you still have the nerve to say that it was just the trouble you made yesterday. When I was young, I was scolded by my fifth uncle last night, and you were still aggrieved. What, Uncle Fu Wu knows what I said at school. Yu Yang's voice was high-pitched, and the skin all over his body was tense. If you look closely, you can see that he is trembling. Xiao Xiao, I just acted like a monster for a while, you have to speak up for me. Uncle Fu will throw me to an uninhabited island, a big boy just cried in front of Zhang Xiao. Zhangxi. Thank you for guarding. It's time to open the snow duck, Li Yulai Yingluo, Ran, Muzining, Yanting, L, my world, please give me advice for the rest of my life. The user on the other side of the world is very lazy, Sift, Lianwuo, Moluluo, recommended votes. Scroll to ask for recommendation votes, collections, level, and activity. Refill. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 43. Chapter 43 Good Seedling. Zhang Xiao and the three of them arrived at the classroom, and the teacher came in at the back. Students, please be quiet. The teacher knocked on the desk, and the classroom suddenly became quiet. The results of yesterday's math test came out. Teacher, I am very happy because a classmate in our class got full marks. This set of test papers is a set of questions we imitated from the college entrance examination. If this classmate performs stably, then this year's top scorer in science will definitely be in our class, the teacher said excitedly. The classmates started whispering, guessing who was so awesome and got perfect marks in the exam. Zhang Xiaoxiao was lying on the table without much interest, her heart was bleeding. She missed an opportunity to leave openly. Fu Yan helped her to go out quietly. After all, it was dangerous. This morning, this opportunity was completely to leave without any danger. That's it? Our. Chu Hanyu poked her twice with his pen. Zhang Xiao raised his head slightly and asked weakly, "What's wrong?" "Teacher, I'm calling you." Chu Hanyu pointed to the smiling teacher on the podium. Oh, Zhang Xiao stood up and went up to get his test paper. "Zhang Xiao, if you have any good learning experience, please share it with your classmates." The teacher looked at Zhang Xiao with eyes shining brightly. "Hard work, diligence." "Teacher. Zhang Xiao, please hold on tight, you are the only one in our class who got full marks on the test." The teacher was not happy when she saw that she got full marks on the test, so he couldn't help but say a few more words. "Good. Teacher. After many years of teaching, this is the first time I have seen such a calm student. It seems that the top scorer in science is stable, and he is indeed a person of great ability. He is calm when things happen. Well, he is a good candidate." If the teacher knew at this time that the young man he considered a good candidate wanted to go abroad, how big of a shadow would there be in his heart? Zhang Xiao returned to his seat, put the paper aside and caught up on his sleep. Chu Hanyu glanced at the sleeping Zhang Xiao, then took a look at his test paper, and began to take out a pen to take notes carefully and listen to the teacher's lecture. He had a best friend who was a top student, so she couldn't be beaten too hard. After school, Zhang Xiao sent a text message to Fu Jianxiu, turned off the phone, and followed Chu Hanyu to prepare to go to the good place she mentioned. Let's find a place to eat first. We won't be able to go to that place until later." Chu Hanyu turned to Yu Yang and said, "You drove here, or you walked here?" "Take a car." Yu Yang pointed to his in pain. "That won't work. Get a car quickly." "You can't get in there without a car." Chu Hanyu frowned. Yu Yang said, "Miss, I'll go there and get you a car at this time. My mother won't let me go out when I get back." "Me too." Chu Hanyu glanced at his mouth and looked at Zhang Xiaoxi with his last hope. "When, your fifth uncle has so many luxury cars." Zhang Xiaoxiao. She couldn't get out even if she went back. In the end, Zhang Xiao secretly called the old man from a public phone, and the old man sent a luxury car to pick them up. The three of them were sitting in an extended-length luxury car. Chu Hanyu took the test paper and asked Zhang Xiaoxi a question. "Xiao, tell me quickly. I didn't understand what the teacher said." Yu Yang joined in the fun and went over to see Chu Hanyu laughing at him after his score was so bad. "Chu Hanyu, have your brains been eaten by pigs? In this test, I have a higher score than you. Roll. If you don't get out, bite me if you can." Chu Hanyu gritted his teeth and glared at him, then said calmly, "Tiger poison cannot eat its seeds." Yu Yang. Thanks for the recommendation. Vote of the young hero of Jade Toad Palace and Fuyun. Continue to be shameless and shameless. Please vote for recommendations, bookmarks, and book reviews. Well, the author has a difficult life. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 44. Chapter 44. Chapter 44. Are you overstimulated? Zhang Xiao couldn't help laughing, but he didn't expect that Chu Hanyu still had a poisonous tongue. Yu Yang saw Zhang Xiao smiling and immediately reacted and shouted, "Chu Hanyu, who is your son? You are taking advantage of me." Chu Hanyu added in a thoughtful tone, "Whoever makes a noise there is his son." Yu Yang immediately closed his mouth and stared at her with his purple eyes. Retarded, Chu Hanyu rolled his eyes at his words. Here Fu Chenxi received Zhang Xiaoxi's text message, his brows furrowed and his face grimaced, and he quickly called back. The mechanical female voice on the other end of the phone reminded, "The phone you dialed has been turned off." Fu Chenxi stared at the phone with dark eyes, frowning, and made another call, "Is it at your place?" And Nangxuan was startled by his deep and gloomy voice. He paused while signing the document and replied, "I'm not here when I'm young." There was silence on the other end of the phone. And Nangxuan's eyelids twitched uneasily and he asked carefully, "Boss, I ran away from home again when I was young." Silence, deathly silence. There was a sound of hanging up the phone. And Nangxuan looked at the phone with a black screen. His eyelids twitched even more. He stopped reading the documents. He picked up his clothes and hurriedly left his office. I was thinking about the conflict between these two ancestors. I am about to turn 18 this year. If something happens, I can't bear it. I have endured it for so many years. Could it be that I was overstimulated this time? Hey, worry. Zhang Xiao was dumbfounded as he looked at the items on display on the stage, lamenting the evil capitalism in his heart. "Child, I'm not lying to you. You like it here. If you like the jade bracelet above, I'll take a picture of it for you." Chu Hanyu lowered his head and asked her in her ear. "I don't like it." Zhang Xiao imitated Baiyu Egwang's tone and refused. "It doesn't matter if you don't like it. There are other lots below. If you see something you like, just tell me and I'll give it to you." "Okay." Zhang Xiao smiled dryly. Baiyu Egwang had a hobby of collecting, especially antiques. Every time she was in a bad mood, her best friend would buy these for her. It wasn't that Baiyu Egwang didn't like these things, and the price of these antiques really made her heart tremble. She kept hypnotizing herself. She was also a rich person, so don't behave too abnormally. While she was distracted, the lights on the stage suddenly dimmed, leaving only a bright light shining in the center of the stage. Then the host's voice sounded, "Here is our last item, the muse." As soon as the host finished speaking, a woman appeared in the center of the stage. The woman was wearing a white dress and was tied to a cross, unconscious. The men sitting in the audience began to get excited. Chu Hanyu leaned into Zhang Xiaoxi's ear and whispered, "Let's go back. There's nothing to see later." Zhang Xiao couldn't move his eyes away. When he saw the woman for the first time, her pupils shrank suddenly, and the expressions on her face were ever-changing. It took a long time before she spoke. "Hanyu, I want to take a picture of her." "Chu Hanyu." At this time, many people in the audience have begun to bid. 3 million. 3.5 million. 4 million. Every time the price was called, Zhang Xiao felt nervous. 5 million. Chu Hanyu and Yu Yang looked at Zhang Xiaoxi at the same time. "Thank you, liquor. I am also very sleepy today." Bai Xiao at vote, "I have a name that is very emotional, Tianji Dream Chaser, the votes of Lianhua babies." New Day recommendation votes, collections, book reviews, get active. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 45. Chapter 45. Chapter 45. Watch or eat. Both of them looked at her with strange eyes. Zhang Xiao ignored the looks in their eyes and continued to compete with others. 6 million. Zhang Hour, 6.5 million. 7 million. Zhang Hour, 7.5 million. Chu Hanyu saw that the situation was getting worse and worse, and quickly took action to stop it. Children, let's calm down first. Hanyu, I don't have time to explain to you. Anyway, I have to take pictures of this woman tonight. There was already a thin layer of sweat on Zhang Xiao's forehead. She was nervous, and her heart was bleeding every time she increased the price. Chu Hanyu pursed his lips, his eyelashes trembled slightly, took a deep breath, and shouted out bravely. 10 million. Jiangxi. Yu Yang. These two women must be crazy. The host still maintains her professionalism, but it is not difficult to see her joy. 10 million times. 10 million times. 30 million times. Congratulations to guest number 58 for getting a muse. Backstage, Zhang Xiao and the other two people had the same expressions. They were bitter. Yu Yang stared at them speechlessly, very helpless. Two ancestors, 10 million, you buy a woman, what can you do with it? Look at it or eat it. You don't have this function. The two of them had a tacit understanding to keep their mouths shut. They did spend 10 million to buy a woman. Needless to say, Yu Yang, even Zhang Xiao thought that only people with mental problems would buy it, but this person had to be bought. Miss, I'm sorry, you only have 3 million here. Could you please change the card? The person collecting the money kept a professional smile, but the group of men in black next to him didn't look friendly at all. Chu Hanyu rummaged through his bag, suddenly became nervous, and whispered softly, when I was young, I brought such a card with me when I went out. What should I do? After saying that, the group of black-clothed people seemed to move, and the atmosphere of the whole room changed subtly. Yu Yang stood in front of the two of them, with a stiff face and clenched fists. He stared at the man in black nervously. I have a card, but it's only 2 million. Chu Hanyu, please call someone to send the money. When I was young, I remember that your fifth uncle gave you a card. It seemed to be his supplementary card. It had no limit. Did you bring it with you? Chu Hanyu glanced at the man in black defensively, thinking that if it really happened later, if there is any change, Jiangxi must be protected. The three of them lingered for too long, so the person who collected the money gave them a proper reminder. It was a reminder, but it was actually a threat. 3 of you, since you are here, you should know the rules here. Chu Hanyu's small body trembled, and her voice was trembling. Child, look for me quickly, otherwise we will most likely not see the sun tomorrow. Jiangxi's slender eyelashes trembled uneasily. Knowing the seriousness of the matter, she began to rummage in her backpack. She had put away many of Bai Yueguang's things. She felt guilty, not sure whether she had put the black card in it. At home. As Zhang Xiao was rummaging around, the atmosphere became increasingly dangerous. It seemed that if they couldn't come up with 10 million the next second, they would deal with the 3 of them on the spot. Suddenly fear, panic, and all other emotions were attached to Zhang Xiao's heart. Just when the man in black had exhausted his patience and was about to take action, Zhang Xiao found the black card and handed it to the person who collected the money. Swipe it. The attitude of the person collecting the money changed instantly, and his fake boss-like smile appeared on his face again. Please wait. A few seconds later, I was still looking for Fujinexiu everywhere when I received a text message on my phone. Your card ending in 888, spend 10 million. Woohoo, the baby wants to recommend tickets, collects, 5-star praise. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 46. Chapter 46. Chapter 46. Did you cry today? Fu Chenxiu leaned on the car seat in the dark car, his cool and deep eyes half-lidded, making it difficult to see his emotions clearly. Fifth Master, The old man's car passed us just now. The driver looked at the car that was about to disappear in the rearview mirror. Fuchinexio frowned and gave instructions in a cool voice, "Follow me." The driver received the instruction, turned the steering wheel, and immediately followed. Chu Hanyu and Yu Yang were two short-sighted people in the car in front. When they saw the appearance of the auction item at close range, their mouths were wide enough to fit an egg in. "When I was little, why does she look so similar to you?" Chu Hanyu asked in shock. "Maybe it's my twin sister or elder sister," Zhang Shi said half-jokingly. Chu Hanyu didn't take it as a joke. Lu Ye frowned slightly, looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao very seriously, and said seriously, "Xiaoxiao, could it be that she is really your twin sister? You have no memory before you were 8 years old." Yu Yang didn't look away. The girl looked away, looking at her face that was 70% similar to Zhang Xiaoxi's, and agreed very much with Chu Hanyu's words. "Xiao, we have to send this girl to the hospital anyway, so just go. Get a DNA test." "No need." Zhang Xiao couldn't make any sound in her throat. She turned to look at the person leaning on her shoulder, her delicate brows furrowed into a deep mark, and her upper teeth lightly bit her pale lower lip. There are many people who are similar to Zhang in the world. There may not be a blood relationship, but it does not rule out that there is no blood relationship. Maybe Miss Baiyu Eguang really has a twin sister. Our. Chu Hanyu's fearful voice sounded in the car, which immediately brought Zhang Xiao back from his thoughts. "What's wrong?" Chu Hanyu showed her the phone to her with a pale face. "Your fifth uncle is here, right behind." Zhang Xiaoxiao looked out the car window. The car that was driving behind suddenly drove alongside them. Fu Chenexio's cold eyes just met hers. Zhang Xiaoxi suddenly looked away, his heart trembling, and his hands clenched nervously. There was a sound of tires scraping against the ground, and then the car stopped steadily, the door opened, and a shadow enveloped her, followed by a cold voice, "Get down." Zhang Xiao's body trembled instinctively, bit his lip, and raised his eyes. His eyes were wet with fright. "Uncle Wu." Fu Chenxiu frowned and said with a cold face, "Come down by yourself, or I will carry you down." Zhang Xiaoxiu's neck tightened, and he put the girl who was leaning on his shoulder onto Yu Yang's shoulder, and got out of the car with a grunt. Before getting off, he used his eyes to ask the two people in the car for help. Who would have thought that the two unloyal guys said at the same time, "Uncle Wu, I'll leave it to you for the rest of the year. Let's go first." Zhang Xiaoxiao just watched Chu Hanyu ask the driver to drive away, leaving her to face the boss alone. "The wind outside is very pleasant, why don't you come in?" Zhang Xiao shivered, bit his lip, sat in the car, and consciously leaned toward the car door to stay away from the boss. Fu Chenxiu stared at Zhang Shi, his eyes cold and dark, and his stern handsome face became even more chilled. "Did you cry today?" "Zhang Shi. Zhou Yuling, if you don't like her, I won't marry you." "There's no need to cry over an irrelevant person." "Zhang Shi. Her role is just to ward off unnecessary troubles. When I was young, you didn't want Uncle Wu to have a bunch of women around him, right?" "Zhang Xiao. She is willing, the more women, the better." "Thank you, I am the most cute person in the world. Fuan, please give me advice for the rest of my life." Fuxinjia, when the rain falls, Rosie, Ikasake Zhang, Chiju, 854-607 recommendation votes. Continue to ask for votes, collections, and book reviews. Let's all be active. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 47. Chapter 47. Why does she feel like the boss is coaxing her? "So Xiao, please don't lose your temper in the future, okay?" Fu Chenxiu stared at Zhang Xiao with a heavy look. Zhang Xiao lowered her head, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. She originally thought that she was going to be dealt with by the boss, but now with this amazing turn of events, She felt that the boss was coaxing her. Uncle Wu, I'm sorry. The boss has already given him the steps to go down. She has to be sensible and just follow the steps obediently. Come over. Jiang Shi moved his buttocks and leaned next to the boss. In less than a second, a warm and thick palm appeared on Zhang Xiaxi's head. He moved gently and stroked her head. It gave her the illusion that she was a cat being groomed by her owner. What did you buy today? Fu Chenxiu asked casually, and Miss Jiang's back stiffened. The comfort of being comforted was replaced by a sense of fear, and her heart kept beating. Her little face fell, and she knew that it was an illusion just now. How could the boss let her go like this? The ultimate move was here. Uncle Wu, I was wrong. Zhang Xiao was really timid when facing the big boss. More importantly, he felt guilty for spending 10 million yuan. 10 million yuan is not a dollar. Spending 10 million yuan to buy a woman means that the big boss should settle accounts after the fall. Fu Chenxiu's hand stroking her hair paused for a moment. Zhang Shi's heart also stopped at that moment. If you are unhappy in the future, just buy what you like. Zhang Shi. But I can't turn off my phone so I can't find anyone, you know. Zhang Shi, who felt like he was riding a roller coaster, nodded obediently. Fu Chenxiu's dark eyes softened. Did you buy anything you like today? Have. Go back and put it in your safe. Zhang Xiao. Put the woman back into the safe. Uncle Wu, I bought a woman. Zhang Xiao thought it was better to honestly explain what he was buying to avoid unnecessary trouble. Zhang Shi, that's the reaction. Uncle Wu, I spent 10 million to buy a woman. Well, I received the text message, just be happy. Zhang Shi. Uncle Wu, the woman I bought was leaning on my shoulder just now, you didn't see her? Zhang Xiao asked deliberately. No. Fu Chenxiu's slender fingers slightly lifted her chin, with a soft light in his eyes. When you were young, you didn't have to report anything you bought to Uncle Wu. Everything he owned was yours. Zhang Xiao's black pearl-like eyes shrank, her face began to feel hot unconsciously, and her heart beat frantically. Uncle Wu, I understand. Zhang Xiao answered while focusing his eyes elsewhere. His fingers hanging on both sides clenched the corners of his clothes involuntarily. Zhang Xiao was lying on the bed, stroking her heart with her right hand. The irregular beating had disappeared now, and her eyes were full of confusion, because she was not sure whether the irregular beating was coming from her or this body. Zombie fraud system, host, it was sent by you yourself. Zhang Shi. System, host, I am here to remind you that you may be in danger recently, please pay attention. Zhang Xiao. Am I trying to bring disaster from heaven? Zhang Xiao, when will I be in danger? System, sorry, the specific time cannot be known. Zhang Xiaxi, don't you know where you are talking nonsense and making me scared? System, this woman is too irritable. Thank you to Uncle Luo Wan for your recommendation votes for Pumpkin Pie, Guardian, Lu Ying Sha, My World, and Yu Yu. Today I continue to ask for votes, I ask for collections, I ask for 5-star praise. Moi. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 48. Chapter 48 Differences. Zhang Xiao was extremely irritable. The phone at his hand buzzed and vibrated. He glanced at the screen and picked it up. When I was young, we sent that woman to the hospital. Are you okay? Chu Hanyu asked her guiltily. Zhang Xiaolian let out a chi sound, and spurned the two cowards. I can still talk to you here if I have something to do. Chu Hanyu. Chu Hanyu laughed dryly twice, with an apologetic tone in his voice. When I was young, we really couldn't afford to offend Uncle Fu Wu, and I know that Uncle Fu would not do anything to you. He likes it so much. No, what I mean is that last time you went to Yanian's house to propose marriage, he didn't do anything to you. This time you just went to the auction house to play, it was nothing. Chu Hanyu realized that he had said the wrong thing, he immediately used other words to cover it up. Zhang Xiaoxiu's mouth twitched. No one knows better than her, the reader, how much the boss likes Miss Bai Yueguang. Did the doctor say how long it would take for her to wake up? Zhang Xiao was more concerned about that woman than anything else. The doctor said she'll be fine after just one night's sleep, but she's only a few hours old. How are you going to arrange it for her? Zhang Xiao thought for a while and said, I remember you had an empty apartment and arranged her there. Okay, Chu Hanyu agreed without thinking. Thank you. Zhang Xiao was not saying thank you for her help, but because she had been here for so many days, Chu Hanyu brought her a sense of warmth. Maybe she occupied Bai Yueguang's body now, but she still felt warm. Chu Hanyu sat on the bed, holding his chin with one hand. When I was little, how could you thank me? We have never been different from each other. Child, do you have any other feelings for Uncle Fu Wu? Chu Hanyu asked tentatively. Zhang Xiao. Bai Yueguang has a best friend who sees it so clearly. Why is he going to commit suicide? Zhang Xiao was silent for a while before answering her. Uncle Wu, he is very kind to me and is my closest family member. There's nothing else that's different. Chu Hanyu wanted to hit her without giving up. No, Zhang Xiaoxi answered simply. Hanyu, you know I was raised by my fifth uncle, and I will also help my fifth uncle take care of him in his old age in the future. Chu Hanyu said. Uncle Fu Wu doesn't need you to help him take care of him in his old age. He hopes that you will give him a few little carrots in the future, and naturally someone will help him take care of him in his old age. He wants you to be his wife. Of course, Chu Hanyu didn't dare to say these words, because Zhang Xiaoxiao meant life to Fu Chenxiu. If she dared to break this relationship, if something really happened, it would be the same as what An Nangxuan said. People can save her. How she discovered that Fu Chenxiu had feelings for Zhang Xiaoxiao was really thanks to An Nangxuan. She liked An Nangxuan. When she found out that she was engaged to An Nangxuan, she was so happy that she started to observe him. No matter what he likes or what he doesn't like, he has those friends who want the best for him. It's a pity that these are all her one-sided likes. Fu Chenxiu's love for Zhang Xiaoxi is just like her love for An Nangxuan. She wants the best for the person she likes. However, Fu Chenxiu's love is more possessive. It is also the easiest to make obvious. Zhang Xiaoxi has never been absent from an important occasion since he was a child. As long as Zhang Xiaoxi is there, Fu Chenxiu must be within 5 meters, and Zhang Xiaoxi is always in his eyes. Fu Chenxiu, come here. Zhang Xiao was stunned. Fu Chenxiu, come here and kiss me. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Why should I listen to you? Chu Hanyu could only understand that kind of look, because she looked at An Nangxuan with that kind of look. People who like you and people who love you only have eyes for you. Chu Hanyu smiled bitterly. All she could do was to remind her that one day her best friend would find it difficult to accept this relationship. After all, the person who liked her was Fu Chenxiu, the person she had been with for 10 years. Nayuniu, Anan is here, please come downstairs. Chu Hanyu's door was knocked twice. I'll hang up now and see you at school tomorrow. Chu Hanyu hung up the phone in a hurry, her eyes were shining brightly, she jumped out of bed, put on her slippers and went downstairs. When she saw someone downstairs, she slightly concealed the light in her eyes. And Xiaoxian, did you miss me when you came to my house in the middle of the night? Chu Hanyu sat down next to him naturally. Nayuniu, you little girl, be careful what you say. Du Xiangfen scolded her daughter softly, but there was no sign of blame on her face. And Nangsuan Danfan looked at someone with helplessness in her eyes, then turned her head and said politely to Du Xiongfen, "Aunt Du, can I talk to Niuniu alone?" "Can." Before Du Xiongfen could speak, Chu Hanyu held in Nangsuan's hand and smiled, "And Xiaoxian, if you want to whisper to me, go to my room." "Niuniu." Du Xiongfen wanted to say that this is not good, girls should be more reserved, but she was glared at by Huang Gilan upstairs. Huang Gilan looked at their backs with satisfaction, and said to her with an old spirit, "Niuniu, it doesn't matter if we talk a little later." "I know, Grandma." And Nangsuan, Du Xiongfen. Chu Hanyu closed the door of his room with his front foot, then let go of Nangsuan's hand, and sat casually on his small sofa, lazily saying, "And Xiaoxian, what do you want from me?" And Nangsuan glanced at the girl's room. She looked very pink and princess-like. She leaned against the wall without sitting down and said helplessly, "Niuniu, are you going to the black market auction with your child today?" "Well, she's not happy, I'll take her for a walk and buy something she likes, what's the problem?" And Nangsuan frowned deeply and began to preach, "Niuniu, where is the black market? You dare to go there by yourself? If something happens to you, have you ever thought about the consequences? You care about me." And Nangsuan looked at Chu Hanyu sitting on the sofa with a headache, and said with a straight face, "Niuniu, did you listen to me?" "Oh, I heard it," Chu Hanyu replied very nonchalantly. And Nangsuan was hurt by her angry attitude. He knew from Yi Changji that the three of them were threatened in the black market, so he drove all the way over to take a look, fearing that she would leave some shadow on his heart. He raised his voice when he couldn't hold it back, "Chu Hanyu, you have to know that there are some places that I can't intervene in. If you..." "What about that? You are not mine. Why should I listen to you?" Chu Hanyu stood up from the sofa and looked at him with wide eyes. "I'm your brother, of course I have to take care of you," and Nangsuan answered without even thinking about it. Chu Hanyu pursed his lips with a wry smile, a layer of mist slowly forming in his eyes. "I understand, let's go." The little girl lowered her head. And Nangsuan didn't see her expression, but he still heard something was wrong in her voice. He originally wanted to say something, but finally left with a helpless sigh. "Niuniu, be obedient." "Thank you, Green Valley, Floating Clouds, Buona Fortuna, the young hero of Jade Toad Palace, Stay, Pistachio, the girl who loves lollipops, please advise for the rest of my life, Flowers Bloom and Ma Qingxian, Blue Sky, Poetry Seconds, Guardian, Xingyi's recommendation votes. Good night, baby, if you still have votes, vote for me, refill." End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 50. Chapter 50. Chapter 50. Don't respond. As soon as Nangsuan left, the mist in Chu Hanyu's eyes quickly turned into teardrops, one by one like broken pearls, dripping on the back of his hand. His little body trembled slightly and he sobbed softly, "I don't want to let you be my brother." "Anan, you have to leave now." Du Xiongfen never left the hall. She was not as big-hearted as Huang Gilan. Although the two children were engaged, she could not see love in Nangsuan's eyes, while Niuniu's eyes were, it was full of him, unrequited love, and she was afraid that Niuniu would be hurt by then. And Nangsuan was stunned by Chu Han's tone. His face was not pretty, but he still had to smile when facing his elders. "Yes, Aunt Du." "Anan, Aunt Du, can you talk to me?" And Nangsuan nodded, "Okay." Du Xiongfen led Nangsuan to the tea room and made a pot of green tea. The aroma of the tea was lingering. "Anan, Auntie can tell that you don't like Niu." Du Xiongfen got straight to the point and spoke so without any scruples, which surprised Nangsuan. "Aunt Du, I will take good care of Niu." Du Xiongfen smiled lightly, her tone was calm and not impatient. "Anan, Niu is not in need of your care. The Chu family is a big family and there are many people who can take care of her." What Aunt Du wants to say is, if you don't like it, don't give it to her. The child hopes that you are so smart that you should understand what Aunt means. And Nangsuan frowned and said, Aunt Du, if Nyuniu doesn't like me, what you are worried about will not happen. Du Xiongfen shook her head with a smile, her brows gentle. Nyuniu is my daughter, and I know her better than anyone else. Don't look at the surface of many things in Anan. The engagement between our two families can be terminated. I just don't want to see my only daughter's daughter was harmed. Aunt Du, I understand. And Nangsuan felt heavy at this time. He never thought that Chu Hanyu was his negligence. Auntie knows that you are a smart child. If you can't do that, keep your distance and don't respond. She will give up when the time comes. Du Xiongfen's words ended at the end. Pussy bar. Yi Changji held a wine glass and looked at the two preoccupied people, and said jokingly, the children at home are disobedient. And Nangsuan took a sip of strong wine, his narrow red phoenix eyes were half squinted, his face was ugly, and he said with a bit of self-doubt, Lao Yi, do you think this girl Chu Hanyu likes me? Yeah. Yi Changji nodded and continued, every time this girl seems to dislike you, she is actually very attached to you. And Nangsuan. I didn't realize that what he said was a question. Boss, have you seen the woman I took a photo of today? Yi Changji changed the subject. Fu Chenxiu narrowed his black eyes and said in a dangerous tone, why is there a problem? No problem, I'm just curious about why your little princess is photographing a woman. Yi Changji was just gossiping. As long as she likes it. Tisk, tisk, if you continue to pamper her like this, that little girl will really go to heaven. Yi Changji sighed. And Nangsuan blew out a smoke ring on Yi Changji's face. It's like saying you didn't spoil your childhood. Am I doting on you? You still provide the gold for the little girl to propose marriage. As soon as Yi Changji finished speaking, a gloomy wind began to drift around him. Fu Chenxiu's dark and sullen face and deep eyes made people shudder. And Nangsuan's back felt cold, and he was sober after drinking. He was betrayed by Yi Changji. He swallowed nervously, looked at Fu Chenxiu, and defended himself, boss, you know what you wanted when you were a child, I met all her requirements, and I didn't know she was going to propose marriage. Good morning. End of this chapter.